across the street. My name is Henry Flores. I really want to share with you the building that we built across the street, how proud we are. We have what is needed in the Gables, which is luxury condominiums in the city of Coral Gables. At the end of the event today, I want to take everybody in for a tour, and I want to introduce you to all the people that work for me, that represent my building across the street. If I can have all the people from the agency come up so I can introduce all of you so they know who you are. And links, okay? At the end of the project, at the end of this event today, we'll be able to all go and have a tour. I also want to introduce you to our commercial component of the building. We have 20,000 square feet of commercial on the ground floor. If Rose and Stephen would come up, they actually handle the commercial inside our own company. The Astor company represents the commercial side of the building. And Stephen and Rose is all the way in the back over there, just putting the hand up in the air. Okay? Again, this is the second year that we host this event, and we're very proud to host the event. Last year when you were here, our building wasn't done yet. Today it's totally finished, and we're very proud about that, and we'd like to show you that. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it back to Jane, okay, so she can start the event.
Thanks so very much.
We're going to focus on South Florida, but I wanted to ask you first. So PMG is national. I mean, you guys have developments. Like, talk a little about the national scope of the company and what kind of advantage that brings to you as a developer here in Miami.
Yeah, so there's a lot of firms that, what is being national? I mean, you're in 2 cities. I mean, you're in 40 cities. We're in, I don't know if it's 40 cities, but we're in a lot of cities across the United States. And we've done a lot of, smart things and a lot of not so smart things. Like pre-crash, we built the #1 golf course with Jack Nicklaus, which was one of our bigger losses because nobody was buying lot sales. We used to sell lots for $1 million and they were worth like $50,000, right? So it sounds cool, but financially it wasn't cool. So we did horse farms in South Carolina.
It was a big summer for us in terms of working on a project called Priced Out of Paradise, which is about affordability and what some of the solutions to that are. Ryan referenced a market solution. There are some other market solutions, but co-living is definitely one of those. If you didn't get a chance to look at our series, it's miamiherald.com/priced out of paradise. And please take a look. We've done a really in-depth look at a lot of different factors from the wage issue, and wages are lower here than they are in other cities. We looked at why. We have some answers. We're not sure we have all of them. We looked at affordability options, at government-supported affordability options, and at market options. And we will be continuing this series throughout the rest of the fall with some more things. We just published part of it last Sunday. We have a very cool tool that is only cool if you're not a realtor, because if you're a realtor, you already can do this. But we have a cool tool that will help people figure out the neighborhoods where they can afford to buy or rent. So they can put in an amount they're willing to pay and see what the schools are, what the crime rate is, and get them on the right path before they start calling realtors to get them on an even better path. So that and our newsletter are how we spent our summer at the Miami Herald. We hope you were all having a really good time doing something else. I'm now going to turn the program back over to our partners here, and well, Rene is not a partner. Rene is the Miami Herald. But every year we partner with Bendixen and Amandi, and if you aren't familiar with them, you are familiar with them. They do all the polling. You want a reliable poll, you go to these guys. So they do for us every year a survey. It is a blind survey to us, not to them, trying to figure out what people who are really on the ground in Miami's real estate market think is really blind to us. Then they give us the results, and we present them during the summer in an issue of Business Monday. We come back to you at this time of year to talk about the key highlights of what we've seen. So I'm going to turn this over to Rene, and Fernand and Anthony and our panelists, and they're going to discuss what they think is really happening in Miami in terms of our market.
So I just want to introduce the panelists really quickly before I hand it over. Starting from the left, Neal Oates is President and CEO of world-renowned real estate, and he's one of my go-to sources whenever I want to talk to a realtor or broker who has boots on the ground and knows exactly what's happening, not necessarily just in the luxury market, but in every price range. And he has a staff of about how many?
14 right now.
14. Next to him is Lynda Fernandez. She's the Chief of Communication of the Miami Association of Realtors. Anyone who works in Miami real estate knows her. Lynda is one of those rare people who actually answers your emails like within minutes. And you can even call her and she answers her phone. And she also knows everything there is to know about Miami real estate. And lastly, Dr. Beracha. He's the director of the Hall of School of Real Estate at FIU, the associate director for the publication American Real Estate Society, and the co-editor of the Journal of Real Estate Literature. Dr. Beracha also puts out a monthly report, which you can subscribe to for free from FIU, that kind of tracks specifically the Miami-Dade Broward market. And he's extremely knowledgeable in terms of data and the kind of really hard to understand stuff that is over my head. So we're going to be throwing to these panel members as we go over the results of this year's survey. Anthony and Fernand, you got it.
Thank you so much, Rene, and also thank you to Jane. Good morning, everyone. Raise your hand if this is the first time you're seeing or hearing about the survey, the annual survey that we do. Raise your hand if you've heard about it, seen the data before. Okay, great. You know, I just want to emphasize why, from our perspective as researchers, we think this is such an important study. And Jane touched on it a little bit, but we know here in Miami, obviously, booming things of our economy, but coupled with that is real estate, both from the construction side and also the impact that it has on a community that, whether we like it or not, and sometimes when you're stuck on the 836, we probably grow every single year. I saw a stat, and the previous panelists kind of hinted at it as well. New York, Los Angeles, and Chicago, three of the biggest cities in the United States, are all losing population. Guess who's not losing population every year? It's Miami-Dade County. That, coupled with concerns, frankly, about the environment, concerns about a generation of future home buyers who, candidly, some are saying, I'm out of the residential marketplace, I'm maybe renting. They all present some very interesting cross currents. And why is this study an important one? As Jane said, it's really the blind element of this. We do research all of the time, but the fact that it's a confidential study, what I've learned is, all of you that are experts, I've overheard some of the conversations that you have here with one another, and you're all lying to one another. Like, you're not being honest about your concerns, or sometimes as bullish as you are. But we find every year that we do this study, and people always say, are you sure that this is anonymous? I say, that's 100% off the record. Of course, we're going to record your results, but not attribute them to you. And they say, okay, I'll tell you what I really to the Herald and to Merrick Manor for partnering us with this. I want to take you some of the key elements of this. Just starting off with not just the study, but really what makes it is the Jane talked about us. Yes, we take pride in the research work we do. If you have any research projects, we'll do them, and we'll do them better than anybody, I'd like to think. But more important than that, let me get to the elements of what we're doing and who's involved in this. Go ahead. The idea is just to take an annual assessment every year about how people regard the real estate market, the professionals, those insiders, those people that are on the front lines, on the grounds. Also, the people that have to interface with the real estate market from a residential perspective, elected officials, property appraisers, all of the folks that are part of the industry. We try and make it representative of the ecosystem that makes up the residential real estate market in Miami-Dade. And this is the 5th year that we're doing this study. But what is it really that makes this study so powerful besides the blind? Let's go to the folks involved. Go ahead. So the folks involved. It's the people. We have been so fortunate, and I think part of this is just people want to hang out with Jane and Rene more than anything else. We get the creme de la creme of the residential real estate ecosystem. We're talking to some of the folks on this list. I mean, you all recognize these bold-faced names, from Mauricio Radua to Wilma Alvarez, Christina Brioche. Go ahead, Anthony, to the next one. Jill Eber, Daniel Castillo, Juan Carlos Fernandez, Nancy Dowson, Maria Frey. Just to give you a sense, we are talking to the top tier folks all across the spectrum. And these are folks that, again, are telling us what they think because they want to know what their peers are also thinking. And that's why I think this, more than any other study when it comes to real estate, is one that a lot of folks continue to pay close attention to. Go ahead. So just again, you get a sense of the caliber of folks, and it's 100 people every year, and we always try and rotate the cast. So it's not the same folks talking, we're getting new perspectives, especially as people come in and out of the residential real estate markets. And of course, it can't be done without the research team. We charge the Miami Herald the most expensive costs to do a project like this. Anybody want to guess what we charge the Herald to do this one? Zero. This is a labor of love, so I want to really thank all of the folks involved in our team that helped make this thing possible. But let's go ahead into the findings, which my colleague Anthony Williams is going to take you through.
Thank you so much. One of the things I wanted to point out here with the makeup of our research team, in addition to being a researcher, I'm also a realtor, which makes this kind of the perfect project for me and one that I'm really interested in. To the extent that the information that we receive is blind, it's double blind. Our research team that you see around me makes all of the phone calls, does all of the actual interviews. They give me the data. So I don't even know who said what. Then we do the analysis, put together a report, and send it over to the Herald. So they certainly couldn't know who said what, because I don't know who said what. So with that said, current state of the real estate market, and as we go through this, Rene and the panel will be commenting on some of the issues, so you don't have to wait until the end to get other feedback. We're going to have that commentary going on throughout the presentation. So to begin with, we always like to ask the question, thinking about your area of specialization, and obviously that's going to be different depending on who it is we speak to. Some of these people are specializing on the beach, downtown, out west in Doral, could be up north in Aventura. So we want them to speak from the perspective of what it is they know. What is your opinion of the current market inventory in terms of quality, right? So just over half of our survey participants indicated that they think quality is good, 26% average, although there is a nugget, a 20% group of people who is not particularly pleased with the quality under $1 million. We also asked a question about value under $1 million. A little bit better numbers here with 65% indicating that they think there's good value in Miami-Dade County, another 11% average, but still that 24%, there's always a little bit of a subcurrent. And you'll see this in many of the questions that we ask. Regardless of what the majority opinion is, you can always find a group of people who will tell you there's an undercurrent going in the opposite direction. Some of the quotations, in terms of value, good value compared to other major cities, that's something that you'll see a lot and that we have discovered repeatedly in our surveys. One of the things that drives people to the Miami market is not that it's cheap if you live here, but it's extraordinarily cheap if you're used to buying property in New York or in some of the major capitals of Europe. And so you have to look at things from that perspective, and that's particularly true at the upper echelon. One person indicated for properties under $1 million it's difficult, but for properties over $1 million, Miami delivers the best value. Many of our developers are inventory for that out-of-town, a lot of times foreign buyer.
So Neal, I wanted to ask you to weigh in on this because you see the housing stock that's out there, and what is your opinion of like what you see and what people are looking for in terms of value and
So one thing I think that's important for us in this room to differentiate is understanding value versus affordability. And it's just as Anthony was talking about, I think a lot of times we're always saying it's unaffordable. But value-wise, you know, when we're saying is it value? Is it overvalue? When I'm looking at numbers, when I'm looking at markets, I'm looking at data. I'm a data guy. I'm a numbers nerd, right? So I love looking at when the numbers come out and when the value is saying and the quality of the inventory. When we're at 95% list price to sales price ratio for single family homes, 94% for condos, it's hard to say that there's not value there. Right? Because affordability, I believe, is an economical issue, but then value is perspective. Right? And as long as, like for single family homes in July and for the first half of the year for Miami-Dade, we're looking at, I believe it was about 18% of those transactions were cash. So that means that there's more than 80% where they're getting financed. So the lenders are seeing some type of value, okay? Now on the other side, when it comes to the condo markets, we're at like 42% are cash transactions. But then that means that the buyers are seeing enough value in the property where they're willing to come and put cash in. And then when we're looking at inventory, you know, for the condos, we're at 13 plus months of inventory. Everyone's aware of that. Now, when I'm talking about mainly what's our bread and butter market between that 250 and 400,000, because we love the idea of sexy properties, million plus, but that bread and butter here is still going to be 250 to 400, really 300 to 400. That price band, that's where we're seeing a great deal of buyers coming in. For single family homes, we're looking at 6 months of inventory. So I know that some people are saying there's not enough inventory, but there's more inventory, and I'm talking of July of 2019. The numbers for Florida Realtors and all their stats. But for July of 2019, there's more inventory than there was last year. So, you know, a balanced market, we're still getting 95% list price to sales price ratios on the original list prices. That means that we're having sellers who are more realistic in the pricing, and we're having buyers and lenders who are giving loans on property. So I see that it's a great time for, you know, once again, to understand the difference between value and affordability. Right? But the value, the market is telling us, the agents, the buyers are telling us that there's still value here because we're not at 90% list price to sales price. And when we start getting that low, that's when I would see an issue with value in the eyes of the buyer. That's something I think that we need to do a better job of as professionals, getting out of the eyes of a professional and a real estate agent and a realtor, and start looking at the idea of value from our buyers or our seller standpoint.
So going on, one of the next things that we always ask, we ask a series of questions to real estate professionals. What is the best area for X? And we're going to go through a series of these right now. What is the hottest area in Miami-Dade County for rentals? This has been consistent for the last couple of years. Brickell, followed by downtown. You see a little bit of a difference there at number 3 this year with Miami Beach and Edgewater edging out Midtown. What is the hottest area right now for buyers? And this is where we see a lot of disagreement. And it really depends on what niche of the market you specialize in. The number 1 answer is Miami Beach. The number 2 answer is Kendall. And anybody who's done real estate in Miami knows you probably can't find 2 areas more different than that. But it really depends on what it is you specialize in and the affordability for your clients. What's realistic for them? People who are buying in Kendall probably can't buy in Miami Beach for the most part.
Lynda, I wanted to do this one to you. Were you surprised that Kendall cracked the list? By the way, that's the list. I know there's other Kendall, a big Kendall proponent. But from your perspective, what's happening here? Is it, like Anthony said, the prices are too high near the urban core, and it's starting to spread out to the suburbs or areas like North Miami Beach, which are also kind of seem to be gaining popularity?
Yeah, so I agree with him. I think it depends on the criteria, and I'm not surprised that Kendall made the list. We release quarterly statistics that show the market metrics by municipality and zip code, and the way we identify the hot markets is based on months of supply. So if there's a lot of activity in the area and the months of supply is very low, that shows that there's a lot of demand for that area. So I've been seeing areas like Neal said, the mid-market, the areas like Hialeah, Westchester, Kendall, and actually, in East Kendall, there are luxury properties. And some people may be able to afford Miami Beach, but they want more land, or they want to, their kids to grow up away from a very busy area, or, so I think it depends on what the buyer is looking for, and the areas that offer more bang for your buck, and that offer proximity to, for example, transportation. East Kendall, you're right by the Dadeland Metro Station, you're right by US 1, you're near the Palmetto, the 874, so there's a lot of connectivity and a lot of good transit options when you live in that area, and you're getting, I think that definitely doesn't surprise me, and we've seen areas like Kendall appear on our hot markets for a while now.
So moving on, and this is where you start to see the other side of the coin. We also ask people, what is the most overvalued neighborhood? Now, we just found out that Miami Beach was the hot area for buying, right? Then we asked, overvalued, and Miami Beach was again number one. Because you guys are nuts. It's a little bit schizophrenic whenever we have these results. Number two is Brickell, number three, Coral Gables. Then moving on, and this is one of the things that we find the most interesting, and probably the most interesting to readers of the newspaper, because everybody wants the inside scoop. What's the next area? Where should I be investing? What is the most undervalued neighborhood? North Miami popped up at number one this year, with Little Havana number two, and Homestead number three. Homestead was also on the list last year, as was North Miami, but Little Havana popping up as an undervalued neighborhood, I think is going to drive a lot of interest among people who are reading the paper there.
So, Dr. Beracha, I want to throw to you on this one, because you track this kind of stuff on a month-to-month basis. What's your take on some of these cities like North Miami Beach cracking this list for the first time, and what do you see going on overall in the undervalued market in terms of overvalued and undervalued?
Okay, so when I look at some of those cities that are on the list, they're very highly correlated with what I found on my research. And the way that I measure overvaluation and undervaluation is not so much whether prices are going up or down, but more what people can buy for relative to what the prices are. More specifically, if I'm looking at the market from a more macro perspective, again, whether prices go up, it doesn't mean that the market is unaffordable. I like to look at it whether the market is going up relative to income, number one, and even more importantly, once you adjust for the cost of money. So even if income is not going up as fast as housing prices in some areas, if mortgage prices are low and recently actually came lower, that makes the affordability higher and actually more reasonable. So if you look, for example, over the last 25 years or so, you will see that in Miami-Dade in general, affordability now is about 25% less affordable than historical averages when you look at just the price relative to income. But once you input this factor, which is basically mortgage rate, really now we are overvalued by about 5 or 6%. So that is not, that much overvalued. So really we're not an extreme. I know what people will tell me, well, when you look at income, in Miami-Dade, a lot of people don't report the income, maybe like they should, so maybe those numbers. But the truth is that if you go a little bit north, you look at